Ryan Turner sat in the small office of his apartment, staring out of the window at the city below. His life, once full of excitement and opportunity, now felt dull and overwhelming. At 35 years old, he was successful in his career. He had everything he had ever dreamed of: a beautiful wife, a lovely home, and a well-paying job. But something was missing. He felt trapped in a life that didn't bring him happiness anymore. His wife, Sarah, had always been the steady, reliable part of his world. She was caring, supportive, and gave him everything she had, including their son, Ethan. Yet, as time passed, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he was suffocating. The constant demands of work and family had drained him, and he began to question everything: his career, his marriage, and his life choices. Ryan had tried talking to Sarah about his feelings before, but nothing changed. He felt distant from her, as if they were living separate lives under the same roof. He had no passion for his job anymore and couldn't remember the last time he and Sarah had laughed together or spent quality time as a family. The love they once shared seemed to have faded, replaced by the routine of everyday life. After months of internal struggle, Ryan made a decision. He needed to leave, not because he didn't love Sarah or Ethan, but because he needed space to figure out who he was and what he wanted out of life. He had convinced himself that stepping away from his family would give him the clarity he desperately needed. It wasn't easy, but Ryan felt it was the only way to find peace again. One evening after dinner, Ryan told Sarah he needed to talk. Sarah, unaware of what was coming, sat down on the couch beside him, looking concerned. Ryan took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Sarah, I've been thinking a lot lately," Ryan began, his voice shaking slightly. "I feel like I've lost myself. I'm not happy. I need to leave. I need some time to figure things out." Sarah stared at him, her eyes wide with shock. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't find the words. Ryan could see the hurt in her eyes, and it made his heart ache, but he couldn't turn back now. "Ryan, please," Sarah whispered. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "I don't know, Sarah," Ryan said, his voice softer now. "I just feel empty. I don't want to hurt you or Ethan, but I think this is something I need to do for myself. I'm not the person I used to be, and I don't want to keep pretending." Sarah's face crumpled with emotion, and Ryan's chest tightened. He didn't want to hurt her, but deep down, he knew this was something he had to do for himself. He needed to find his own way before he could ever be the husband and father they deserved. After a long silence, Sarah finally spoke. "I don't understand, Ryan, but if this is what you need, I can't stop you. I don't know how we'll move forward from this." With a heavy heart, Ryan stood up, not knowing what the future held, but knowing that leaving was the only way he could find himself again. As he walked out of the door that night, he left behind a life he had built, hoping that someday he could return and make things right. After months of living alone, Ryan thought he had finally found peace. He focused on his career, traveled for work, and spent his free time doing things he hadn't had time for before. But even with all the freedom, something still felt off. He missed his family, especially Ethan, his young son, and Sarah, even though he couldn't fully admit it to himself. One evening, Ryan received a message from Sarah. He hadn't heard from her much since he left, and a part of him hoped she was doing well. The message was brief but urgent. It read, "Ryan, I need you to come home. It's about the kids. Please come back." Ryan felt a strange pull in his chest. The kids. He had no idea what Sarah meant, and his curiosity got the better of him. He hadn't seen Ethan in months, and he couldn't stop thinking about him. The idea of coming back, even for a short visit, felt strange but important. He quickly arranged to fly back home, his mind racing with questions. What did Sarah mean by the kids? He thought he knew what his life looked like now, but this sudden message made him wonder if everything was about to change again. When Ryan arrived at Sarah's house, everything seemed quiet. He walked up the driveway, took a deep breath, and knocked on the door. Sarah opened it quickly, her face tired but warm. "Ryan," she said softly, "thank you for coming. Please, come inside." Ryan stepped inside the house, immediately noticing how much different it felt compared to the last time he was there. There was a new energy in the house, both welcoming and chaotic. He didn't understand what Sarah meant by the kids at first, but when he walked into the living room, his heart skipped a beat. There, in front of him, were quadruplets, 4 identical babies, all giggling and reaching for toys scattered around the room. Ryan stood frozen, unsure of what he was seeing. 4 tiny faces, all staring up at him with curiosity, their eyes wide and bright. Sarah smiled gently as she watched his reaction. "They're yours, Ryan," she said, her voice filled with both happiness and exhaustion. "They're your children. The quadruplets. I didn't know at first. I was shocked when I found out." Ryan's mind raced, trying to process the information. "What? How? I don't understand," he stammered. Sarah gently picked up one of the babies, holding her close. "I found out I was pregnant not long after you left. I didn't know about the quadruplets until the doctors told me. It was a surprise, to say the least. But I didn't want to trouble you with it. I raised them on my own, Ryan. It's been hard, but I've done my best." Ryan's head was spinning. He had no idea this was even possible. He had missed the entire pregnancy, the birth, and now, here they were, his children. 4 beautiful babies that he had never known existed until now. As Sarah explained more about the challenges of raising quadruplets on her own, Ryan felt a wave of emotions hit him. There was guilt for leaving, regret for missing out on so much, and strangely, a growing sense of love for the 4 little lives in front of him. He walked closer, kneeling down to meet the babies, each one looking at him with innocent eyes. He felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility wash over him. These were his children. This was his family. Sarah watched him, her voice soft. "I never wanted to keep them from you, Ryan. I just didn't know how to tell you. But now, they deserve to know their father. They deserve to have you in their lives." Ryan took a deep breath, his mind finally settling. He wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. His life had changed forever. The days following his return were filled with confusion and emotions Ryan didn't know how to handle. The sight of his quadruplets, Ella, Maya, Lucas, and Isla, was still fresh in his mind. 4 babies, his babies. He hadn't known they existed until just days ago. And now, here they were, all giggling and growing up without him. His heart ached for the time lost, but Ryan also felt a powerful pull to be part of their lives. At first, everything felt overwhelming. Sarah had done an incredible job raising them on her own, but it was clear that even she needed help. Ryan didn't know where to start. Holding the babies was awkward at first. He fumbled with the little ones, unsure of how to pick them up without feeling like he might drop them. They were tiny, delicate, and full of life. Every time they reached out to him with curious hands or smiled at him with their innocent faces, he felt a mix of joy and guilt. He had missed so much of their early lives. Sarah was patient with him as he struggled. She could see his discomfort and hesitation. "It's okay," she said gently one afternoon as Ryan awkwardly tried to feed one of the babies. "You're doing fine. It just takes time." But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he was an outsider in his own family. He wasn't sure how to bond with them, or how to act around Sarah, who had grown so strong and independent during the years he had been away. She was no longer the woman he had married. She had evolved into someone who had learned to handle everything on her own. And Ryan couldn't help but feel like he was trying to catch up with everything. His past mistakes, the children's milestones, and the family that had continued without him. As the days passed, Ryan found himself spending more time with the children. He learned their different cries and the way each of them had unique little quirks. Ella loved to laugh. Maya was curious and always exploring. Lucas had a way of grabbing Ryan's finger whenever he was near, and Isla had the softest, most peaceful gaze. Slowly, the bond between him and each child began to form. It wasn't immediate, but every small step mattered. Despite the progress, things weren't perfect. There were moments when Sarah would look at Ryan with a hint of frustration in her eyes, especially when he would slip into old habits of avoiding responsibility. Ryan had to remind himself that the family dynamic had changed without him, and that he needed to make up for lost time. One evening, as the babies were finally asleep in their cribs, Ryan and Sarah sat together in the living room. The house was quiet, a contrast to the busy, chaotic days filled with diaper changes and midnight feedings. "I never thought I'd see you again," Sarah said softly, her voice carrying a hint of sadness. "I thought you were gone for good." Ryan looked at her, guilt welling up inside him. "I made a mistake, Sarah. I know that now. I should have been here. For you. For the kids. I don't expect everything to be easy, but I want to make it right." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "It won't be easy, Ryan, but we can try. For them." Ryan took a deep breath. It wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to make things right. For his children. For Sarah. For the family that he had abandoned. But now, in this quiet moment, he could begin to rebuild. It had been several weeks since Ryan had returned to Sarah and their children, and he could feel the weight of the changes. The quadruplets had already grown so much, and though he was starting to bond with them, there were moments when he felt like a stranger in his own family. Sarah had become a different woman, stronger, more independent, and deeply protective of the life she had built without him. The challenges of adjusting to fatherhood were only part of the problem. The emotional distance between Ryan and Sarah was more complicated. He knew that simply returning wasn't enough. He had hurt her deeply when he left, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't erase the years of absence. Sarah had learned to live without him, and now Ryan had to find a way to show her that he was committed to staying, to making things right. One evening, after a long day of caring for the babies, Sarah sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. Ryan joined her, nervously running his hands through his hair. "We need to talk," he said, his voice hesitant. Sarah looked up from her tea and nodded. She had been waiting for this moment, but she wasn't sure how to respond. "What do you want to talk about?" "I know I've been distant," Ryan began, choosing his words carefully. "I've been trying to be there for the kids, but I haven't been there for you, not in the way I should have been. And I need to fix that." Sarah's expression softened, but she remained cautious. "You can't just expect everything to go back to how it was. I can't forget what happened, Ryan. I've had to raise these kids on my own. I didn't need you then, and I don't need you now, just to come in and fix things with a few words." Ryan's heart sank, but he didn't back down. "I know I can't fix everything, but I'm willing to try. I don't want to live with regret anymore. I want to be here, fully. For you, for the kids, for us." Sarah took a deep breath and set her tea down. "I want to believe you, Ryan. I really do. But you've been gone for so long. You left us, and I don't know how to trust that you won't just walk away again." Ryan reached out across the table, his hand resting gently on hers. "I won't leave again. I'm not asking you to forget the past, but I'm asking for the chance to prove that I'm committed. Not just to you, but to the life we've built." There was silence between them for a moment. Sarah looked at Ryan, searching his eyes for any hint of insincerity. She didn't find any. What she saw was someone who had been lost and was now trying to find his way back. Slowly, she nodded. "It's not going to be easy, you know." Ryan smiled softly. "I know, but nothing worth having ever is." For the first time in months, there was a sense of hope between them. The distance wasn't gone, but it had begun to shrink. They weren't going to fix everything overnight, but for the first time, they were on the same page. Over the following weeks, Ryan worked hard to prove his commitment. He spent more time with Sarah, taking on more responsibilities around the house and being present for the kids. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when old habits resurfaced, but little by little, Sarah saw the effort Ryan was making. They started to talk more openly about their feelings, about what had happened in the past, and what they wanted for the future. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Slowly, they began to rebuild, not just as parents, but as partners. Ryan knew it would take time, but for the first time, he truly felt like he had a chance to make things right. And for Sarah, the possibility of a future together felt just a little bit closer. As the weeks turned into months, Ryan found himself fully immersed in his new role as a father to the quadruplets. Every day brought new challenges, but also moments of joy and discovery. The babies were growing quickly, and each of them had developed their own little personalities. Ella was the curious one, always reaching for new things. Maya was gentle, her smile lighting up the room. Lucas had a way of drawing everyone's attention with his laughter, and Isla was calm, content to watch everything around her. Ryan had never imagined the complexity of raising 4 children at once. He had been nervous at first, unsure how he could possibly keep up with everything. There were diapers to change, bottles to prepare, and endless messes to clean. At times, it felt like an endless cycle of tasks, with little rest in between. But as each day passed, Ryan grew more confident. He found his rhythm and began to appreciate the small, precious moments, the giggles during bath time, the quiet cuddles after they fell asleep, and the joy of seeing their first steps. But even as he settled into his new routine, the challenges didn't stop. The quadruplets needed constant care, and the demands on Sarah were still overwhelming. Though Ryan was there to help, he knew he could never fully understand what Sarah had gone through in the years he had been absent. She had raised the children alone, and now, as much as she appreciated Ryan's help, there was still a part of her that held back. One evening, as they both sat down to dinner after a long day, Sarah spoke quietly, her voice carrying a mix of exhaustion and frustration. "Ryan, I'm glad you're here, but sometimes I feel like we're still not really working together. You help with the kids, but I don't think you understand how hard it's been for me to do this alone. It's like you're just stepping in now, and I'm still doing everything." Ryan listened carefully, his heart heavy with the truth of her words. He knew she was right. He had missed so much, and no matter how much he helped now, it didn't change the years Sarah had spent doing it all on her own. "I'm sorry," Ryan said softly, looking at Sarah with sincerity. "I can never fully understand what you went through. But I want you to know that I'm here. I'll keep trying to make things better, not just for the kids, but for you too." Sarah sighed, her eyes tired but searching his. "I know you're trying, Ryan, and I do appreciate it. But I think we both need to adjust, to figure out how to be partners in this, not just parents. It's going to take time, but I don't want to feel like I'm carrying all the weight again." Ryan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. It was clear that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to make it work. He wasn't just rebuilding his relationship with Sarah, he was learning to be the father and partner she deserved. Over the next few weeks, Ryan took on more of the household responsibilities, even when it felt overwhelming. He helped Sarah with chores, cooked meals, and made sure to spend time with the children, especially during the evenings when things got busy. Slowly but surely, Sarah began to see that Ryan was fully committed to this new chapter in their lives. They were no longer just parents. They were learning to be partners again. It wasn't perfect. They had their disagreements and moments of frustration. But for the first time since he returned, Ryan felt like he was truly part of the family, not just as a father to the quadruplets, but as a partner to Sarah, sharing the load together. And with every small step forward, their relationship grew stronger, filled with hope for the future. As the months went by, Ryan found himself completely absorbed in his new life. His days were no longer defined by business meetings and office deadlines. Instead, they were filled with the laughter of his 4 children and the quiet moments of connection with Sarah. Raising quadruplets was no small task, but every day, Ryan felt himself growing more in love with his family. The exhaustion was real, but so were the small moments of joy. One afternoon, after spending the morning helping Sarah with the babies, Ryan sat down with a cup of coffee, reflecting on how much his life had changed. He thought back to the man he had been when he left Sarah, the man who had been chasing success, never really taking time to appreciate what he had. Now, as he watched the quadruplets play on the floor, he realized that true happiness wasn't found in career achievements or personal freedom. It was in moments like these, small, everyday moments that he had once taken for granted. As he sat with Sarah that evening, the two of them finally had a moment to talk without being interrupted by the babies. It had been a while since they had time alone, and Ryan knew it was important to reconnect with her. "Sarah," Ryan began, his voice gentle, "I've been thinking a lot about the future, about how I want to be a better partner to you, and a better father to the kids." Sarah looked at him, her eyes tired but warm. She had seen the changes in him, but there was still a quiet hesitance in her. "I know you're trying, Ryan, but we've both been through a lot. I'm still figuring out how to trust that things are really different now." Ryan nodded, understanding her hesitation. "I know I hurt you. I can't take back the time I lost, but I promise I'm here now. I want to make up for that. Not just with the kids, but with you too. I want us to be a team again." Sarah's gaze softened, but there was still a part of her that held back. "I want that too, Ryan, but it's going to take time. We've both changed, and I'm still figuring out how to let go of the past." Ryan reached for her hand, his grip firm but gentle. "I'm willing to wait. I'm here for the long haul. I want to build a future with you, not just for the kids, but for us too." That night, as they sat together in the quiet of their home, Ryan made a decision. He was no longer the man who had walked away. He was ready to fully embrace the family he had once left behind. And in that moment, he realized something powerful. While it might take time to rebuild his relationship with Sarah, he was committed to the journey. In the weeks that followed, Ryan continued to dedicate himself to his new role as a father and partner. He spent time learning about what Sarah needed, emotionally, physically, and mentally, and did his best to support her. He took on more responsibilities around the house and even started organizing family outings, making sure that Sarah had time to relax while he handled the kids. As Ryan worked hard to rebuild his relationship with Sarah, he began to see the fruits of his efforts. The walls that had been built between them began to come down slowly, brick by brick. They were not the same couple they had been, but in many ways, they were stronger. They had both been through so much, but now they had each other, and that was the foundation they could build on. Ryan had found a new purpose in life, and it was no longer about the business or the success he had once chased. It was about family, love, and second chances, and for the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. The months passed by, and Ryan continued to embrace his new life as a father and partner. The early struggles began to feel like distant memories as he grew closer to his children and Sarah. Every day was a new opportunity for growth, not just for him, but for the whole family. The quadruplets, Ella, Maya, Lucas, and Ezra, were no longer the small, fragile infants Ryan had met months ago. They were now full of energy, crawling around and learning new things every day. Ryan had become a devoted father, something he never imagined he could be. His mornings were filled with feeding time, getting the kids dressed, and helping Sarah prepare for the day ahead. They had learned to work as a team, and though it wasn't always easy, the love and effort they shared were the foundation of their family. One weekend afternoon, Sarah and Ryan decided to take the quadruplets to the park. The sun was shining brightly, and the air was warm with the hint of summer. Sarah packed a picnic basket, and Ryan loaded the kids into the car, feeling a sense of excitement he hadn't felt in years. For once, the family was together, without the distractions of work or the past. It felt like a new beginning. As they arrived at the park, Ryan looked at Sarah, feeling a wave of gratitude. They had come so far since the day he had walked out, and though there was still work to be done, he knew they were building something real together. "Ready for some fun?" Ryan asked, smiling at Sarah. She smiled back, her eyes tired but happy. Let's see how long we can keep them entertained." Ryan laughed and went to lift one of the babies out of her stroller. Ella reached out her tiny hands, already eager to explore the world around her. As Ryan held her in his arms, he thought about how much he had missed in her first year of life. Yet in this moment, he felt lucky. He was finally a part of the family, and that meant everything. They spent the afternoon at the park, laughing and playing with the kids. Ryan found joy in the simple things, the way Lucas giggled when Sarah pushed him on the swing, or how Maya tried to feed him a handful of grass, thinking it was food. He cherished these moments because he knew they were building memories together, ones that would last forever. As the sun began to set, they packed up their things and headed back home. Ryan felt a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. He wasn't just the father of these children. He was present in their lives, helping them grow and shape their future. He had found a purpose, not in the career he had once focused on, but in the family that now needed him more than anything else. Back home, as they tucked the children into bed, Ryan looked at Sarah and spoke softly. "I'm glad I came back. I didn't know how much I needed this, how much I needed you." Sarah smiled, her heart full. "I'm glad you're here too. It's not always easy, but we're doing it together." As they sat together in the quiet of their home, Ryan realized that the past didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the family they had built and the future they were creating together. There were still challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them. With Sarah by his side and his children to guide him, Ryan knew that this was where he was meant to be. For the first time in years, Ryan felt like he was truly home. And this time, he wasn't going anywhere. Years passed, and the Turner family grew even stronger. Ryan, Sarah, and the Quadruplets had found a rhythm to their lives, a balance that allowed them to cherish both the quiet moments and the chaos that came with raising 4 children. Each day was a new adventure, and Ryan had learned to appreciate every single moment, no matter how small. As the Quadruplets entered school, Ryan found himself reflecting on how much had changed since he first left. He thought about the man he was, the one who walked away from everything, and the man he had become. There were times when he wished he could go back and undo the hurt he caused, but he knew that he could never change the past. What mattered now was the present, and the future he was building with his family. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan took a break from work to spend some quality time with his children. Sarah had planned a family outing to a nearby lake, and Ryan couldn't wait to enjoy the day with them. The kids were growing so fast, each developing their own unique personalities. Ella, now with her curiosity, loved asking questions about everything around her. Maya, always the nurturing one, was taking on the role of little helper. Lucas, full of energy, was always running ahead, excited for the next adventure. Isla, calm and thoughtful, enjoyed sitting back and taking everything in. As they all gathered by the lake, Ryan couldn't help but smile. Watching Sarah and the kids interact, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He had once walked away from this, unsure of what it meant to be a family. But now he was here, fully present, and there was nowhere else he wanted to be. "We should do this more often," Ryan said, pulling Sarah close as they watched the children play. Sarah smiled and nodded. "I agree. It's good to slow down and just enjoy the time we have." For the first time, Ryan didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. He had spent so many years chasing success and freedom, only to realize that true happiness wasn't found in accomplishments or personal space. It was found in the simple moments, time spent with the people you loved, building memories, and facing challenges together. As the afternoon went on, the family enjoyed a peaceful picnic by the water. Ryan and Sarah talked about their dreams for the future, about the kind of life they wanted for their children, and about how they could continue to grow as a couple. It wasn't always easy, but they knew that the love they had for each other and for their children was the foundation that would carry them forward. By the time they packed up to leave, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow across the lake. Ryan looked at his family, his 4 daughters, Sarah, and the life they had built, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was everything he had ever wanted. As they drove home, Ryan sat in the front seat, his hand resting on the steering wheel, his heart full. There would be more challenges, more ups and downs, but Ryan knew one thing for sure. He was exactly where he was meant to be. And no matter what happened, he would never walk away again. He had found his home, his purpose, and his family. And that was more than enough.